Welcome to episode 23 of Lakeshore Christian Church's Midweek podcast. I'm Pastor Randy Cordell. We're coming to you live from our studio at our Antioch campus here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. Each week on the podcast, we plan to talk about all things Lakeshore. We'll have special guests in a lot of weeks and interview them and find out more about what they do and community events that are going on in the area. I want to encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to subscribe to the podcast. You might want to hit that notification bell as well so that you get notifications when we post a new one. If you miss it live, we're live Wednesdays at noon, but if you miss it live, after it's posted, you can listen to it anytime on many of the major podcast platforms. Well, I'm happy to welcome our guest today, John Murphy with Rock House Center for Counseling. Welcome, John.
Well, thanks, Randy. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking some time to talk with us today. I'd like for everybody to get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, those kinds of things.
Okay, well, I'll try to keep that short. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
Actually in the same hospital that my wife was born in, but we didn't meet each other until 26 years later.
Really?
Sitting next to each other on an airplane.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's like one of those party things, like tell somebody something that nobody knows about you.
Yes.
Well, now everybody knows, so I can't use that one anymore.
Well, that's a good story. I want to hear more later, though. All right.
Okay. So moved from there, St. Louis to Augusta, Georgia. At 12, moved to Aiken, South Carolina. Did college in Atlanta.
Okay.
And then moved to Nashville 40 years ago-ish. To marry Beth.
Wow.
Yeah. So obviously we came back together.
So she was here in Nashville and you came here.
That's exactly right. Yeah. She's a Nashville girl.
That's great.
Right.
Fantastic.
So that was kind of the history of growing up. As far as I think the bigger story is kind of where I was from a perspective of Christianity. Yeah. And I grew up in a family that really didn't spend a lot of time talking to God or thinking about God and their decisions or actually really accepting that he was there. So basically an atheist, nominal Unitarian was sort of how I would describe ourselves.
Yeah.
So we weren't really into the traditional kind of Christianity, but then that changed. In a conversation I had with Beth one day, I realized that God was the answer for me. He was the person who loved me, that I was looking to love me unconditionally, and became a Christian at 26.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there, it turned into just pursuing my faith and having, coming into Christianity that late in life, there were a lot of things inside of me that needed work. Yeah. And so then that kind of put me on the track that ultimately took us to where we are at Rock House, because I began to engage God in a way in which he began to heal me and transform me and make life more peaceful, which ultimately turned into writing a book called Be Transformed, New Life Awaits. And then it was about that time that we founded Rock House Center. My background was business until that time.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, I love hearing those stories and connecting the dots. It's amazing how you can look back and see how God was at work the whole time, connecting those dots, bringing those things together, people together, circumstances together to lead you to where he wanted you to be in your life.
Yeah, there's no question that even before I was a believer, if I look back on it, I saw God's nudging, pulling me in.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up not far from that area. I grew up in northeast Georgia. We played schools in Augusta in sports a lot of times. So growing up, so I was in Augusta quite a bit with ball games and things like that, and familiar with that area really well. And then I went to school in Atlanta as well for college after that. So we got a little bit of some common history there.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that Beth was coming to Nashville to be with her and get married. Mm-hmm. And having her have a great influence on you, I'm sure, and coming to that decision of faith. But help us understand a little bit more about after that, as you got to that place of wanting to share with others, I guess, what God had done for you. You saw how it impacted you and transformed your life. Yeah. How did let's connect the dots from there to starting Rock House Center. What were the steps involved there?
Well, the very first step was in struggling with a lot of depression, went to a counselor. A counselor told me I needed to forgive. And then after wrestling with that concept for a really long time, I gave in and did some forgiveness work. And the depression, a tremendous amount of depression, lifted off of me over the next 30 to 60 days.
It's amazing how that works.
And that was really kind of the start of the whole thing, because what came out of that was, man, this is really amazing. This is powerful. This Christian thing has really got some legs to it. Yeah. And so I was really kind of drawn in by that and thought, well, I want more of that, but I got to get this message to other people. Yeah. And what came out of that was the writing of a book called Be Transformed, New Life Awaits, and that published in 2006. That evolved over time into a workbook and then ultimately into Rock House Center, where we do biblical counseling based on the concepts. And we actually have refined our understanding, and we have a thing we call motive transition therapy. So we are actually a serious-minded Christian counseling organization based on the biblical truth of God's transforming our heart as the foundation for emotional health.
That's the thing that I loved the most when we first connected, and you've been here to Lakeshore before, and you and Beth and did a marriage series here. Mm-hmm. And the reason we were myself and the other elders were so excited about bringing you here was because of the story and the commitment to the transforming power of God mm-hmm. in people's lives, and His presence and His power, the work that He does from the inside out. Yep. And I just love that. And that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast too, mm-hmm. so people could hear more about what you do and why you do it. If we've got listeners that are interested in more information about that, we're going to share some of that before we go today. But tell us about Rock House Center. Where is it located? And then let's talk about what kind of counseling services you offer, those kinds of things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's it's an organization of 12 people. 3 of them are in Washington State, which came out of working through Zoom and helping some folks out in Washington State. Okay. And then, so it's now located here on Franklin Road in Brentwood. Right. But we are also, to really understand our scope, we help people in 38 states and 11 countries.
Wow, that's
so we've
great.
Really spread out through the use of through Zoom. Yeah. And of course that really got started through the COVID experience of doing Zoom.
Yeah, that's amazing to me how COVID has, it rocked our world for sure. And there are a lot of negative side effects that came from it, but mm-hmm. God used it in some really powerful ways to move the church and to move Christians and ministries to have to do some things maybe outside of our comfort zone at first, right? But He was using big time, and I can see how He's done that with you guys.
Definitely the case. I don't think without COVID we would have the spread that we have in so many different places, and we're having little cells pop up of people who are really excited about this, and they've told their friends, and it's kind of what's happened out in Washington State. That was an individual who was a client who ultimately became a counselor, and then he brought others in, and there's a group. We went out there not long ago, and there's a group of about 100 folks out there who have had the experience, or directly or indirectly, because a lot of times the people who go through our program get that same fire that I was talking about. I want more for me and more for others. Right. And then we go, well, grab this material that we use and go love somebody through it. You don't have to counsel them, just love them through it. It will change them, and your presence there and your testimony will bring the change.
That's great. Well, I know that I have referred people to you, and I've gotten great feedback from them mm-hmm. on the help that they found there. Yeah. And I know you're letting God use you to do that in so many different ways. So let's talk about different areas that you counsel people in. What are some of the things you're dealing with there, or people are dealing with, that if I were to refer them to you or they're looking for help, what are some things you would be able to help them with?
Well, I think when people think about what they would expect from a traditional counseling organization, we do all that stuff. So it's going to be anxiety and depression and rage and anger and sleepless nights and marriage issues and parenting issues and all the kinds of things, addiction things. There really isn't anything that we have found that that's bigger than God. So we're kind of like we do all comers. Yeah. And then that's sort of kind of now been categorized into motive transition therapy, which is biblically based on the truth, capital T truth, counseling program, which we put folks through, and we have tremendous results in that. And then we went on to build the marriage program, the Authentic Love Marriage. I love that title, Authentic Love Marriage, using a lot of the videos, materials that we generate here. And then the next one is coming, but we have a program here that people can get through Rock House now, is the Divine Needs Parenting.
Oh, wow. Well, there's a big area of need there for sure.
So we have those things, and then we also have an intensive program, because some people really are a little bit too intense, a little bit too hurting to actually roll into the way in which we use videos and the way in which we use videos in our materials. So we have an outpatient intensive program, typically people who are really kind of having a hard time on a day-to-day basis. Normally we meet once a week with folks, but those folks we talk to pretty much every day to kind of help support them and hold them close. Yeah. We double team them. We have 2 counselors on an individual in that case, and spend a lot of time trying to touch them and seeing, what are you wrestling with today? Let's knock it down and make this day better, and they'll talk to you tomorrow. It is truly an intensive.
Yeah, sometimes that the circumstances just call for that and more intense approach. Absolutely. Well, I love that you have a combination of being able to do some in person now, but thanks to COVID, you were already doing some Zoom type stuff, but COVID really pushed that ahead.
Yeah.
And now people have that option, right? If they're needing that done through Zoom, that's an option that you offer for them.
Yeah.
But you also have that in person if they're
exactly.
able to be there and,
exactly.
and want that.
Yeah, we're probably 35, 65 ratio of Zooming being the 35.
Oh, okay.
It used to be 100%, but now people do like to, a lot of times do want to come in. So we do certainly have a lot of people who come in as well.
Yeah. So you and Beth, did you start this together or did you?
Well, people call me the founder, but that's really a little bit of a misnomer. Beth was in the background making it happen on her side. She wasn't actually involved day to day, but she was like bringing home the paycheck while we were getting started.
Right. That's important. Yeah.
There was a lot of that. So really, we're co-founders. I started it off as a 100% commitment, and then she came on in about 2010. And it all started off really as a discipleship program, but what we recognized was there was a really significant therapeutic effect happening when we were trying to help people go through it from a discipleship perspective. Mm-hmm. So we actually renamed it as therapeutic discipleship, which is really what it is. Yeah. And then we begun to track our numbers, and we have really significant results. We have a tremendous amount of data that we've collected, pre and post assessments, self-assessments that people do. Mm-hmm. And we've even gone outside and had a independent third party come in and validate how powerful these results are. Yeah. And that's a big differentiator. I mean, if you call a counseling organization and says, show me your results, they will not have them. They won't even have any results to show you. And we've actually got pretty amazing results based on a lot of cases and independently verified. So it's a real different thing. We realized at some point that God doesn't mind being measured. So let's go ahead and measure it and prove it. Let's put some numbers to this thing.
Yeah, God even challenges us in some cases in Scripture to put him to the test on some of these things and see what he can do. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that impressed me most as we first started getting to know about you and Rock House Center, is I was able to go and look at those results that you guys were being able to track. Yeah. And I know as a pastor, one of the hardest things for me as a pastor, and I know I've got other pastors that listen to the podcast, having a place where you can refer someone that you have confidence in, that you really believe is going to help the people. You don't want to just push them off. I'm not trained and can't do all the counseling that needs to be done within our church family and others that we have contact with. So to have a good resource that you've got confidence in is huge for a pastor. And as I saw the results and I got to know you guys more personally and see the approach that you take with your counseling, it's no surprise to me, I know it is to some, I'm sure outside in the counseling world, that you're getting better results than so many other counseling programs are getting, because it's so centered in Scripture and the work of God in people's lives. Completely. And you keep taking them back to that. And that's the strength, that's the source. Right. That makes all the difference.
Yeah, so what one of our clients even said to us and kind of gave us this word to use is that really it's the systemic approach. Like you don't have to have this for that particular and this for that particular, whatever your issue is. If you go far enough upstream and you're dealing with the heart issues, then all of the stuff that's coming apart downstream is going to be impacted. And that's where we are. We're working on the heart, the foundational heart issues that everyone struggles with. That comes out of the, their life story has gotten them to a place where their heart is wounded and hurting, and they're just trying to make it work based on the condition of their heart.
Yeah, and most people probably don't look at it that way as things begin to unravel in their lives. They're looking at the systemic things of, well, we're struggling financially, or we're doing this, or we're not talking to each other in our marriage like we need. There's things that they look at and say, well, we need to fix that thing or that thing, without going back to the source.
Yeah, it's that cause and effect. We get focused on cause and effect, and just how we react to things. But actually, how you react to something is, instead of changing your circumstance to feel better, change how you react to your circumstance. That's going upstream. Well, you know what? That doesn't bother me anymore.
Right.
Well, that's the change. You don't want to say, look, well, I got to get a new job and I got to change this and buy a new car. That's all changing your circumstance. What if you got upstream to where you're at peace where you are today? Yeah. That's when you really have landed the plane and someone's life is really redirected.
Did you listen to my sermon Sunday?
I must have.
It sounds like
something you would say.
we were talking about that some Sunday. We're doing a series on financial health that honors God, and a lot of times it's the financial struggles go back to a deeper, more core issue of contentment and satisfaction.
Yeah.
And it's centered in relationship with Christ. That's where you're going to find that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're trying to make it happen in so many other ways that for a little while make us feel better, but then we're right back sometimes deeper into the problem than we were before.
Well, it really speaks to this concept. It's so simple, but when you think about it, you go, of course, which is that there's control and there's trust. And below control, there's anxiety, depression, fear, a lot of bad stuff. Over on the other side, there's trust. And what's under that? Peace in all circumstances.
Yeah.
So that's where we are, is that we're all on that spectrum somewhere. And the more we're on the trusting God for the thing, we're going to have more peace. But the more we're trying to do it in our own strength, you know what? Most stuff's kind of bigger than we are. Yeah. So then we just worry about it.
Yeah. See, that was week 1 in the sermon, so you heard that one too. That's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
he's just reinforcing my sermons, guys. I appreciate it. You're hearing it from an expert, so
I'm just here to validate. I'm a validator today. That's all I'm doing.
Well, it's just so much truth to that. God's our creator. He knit us together in our mother's womb. He knows us better than we know ourselves.
Right.
So the issues we deal with don't catch him off guard at all. And I have learned that Scripture is just so timeless and so applicable. Doesn't matter where you come from, what race or ethnicity or what economic level you're on. At the core, we're people created in the image of God, and that relationship with him is at the core of everything, of who we are and what we do, how we respond to life.
One of the scriptures that we like to refer to is Romans 8:29, that God desires to make us inwardly like Christ. Yeah. So that's really a lot of people want to know what their purpose is. Well, everybody has the same first purpose, which is to allow the Lord to transform them into being more like Christ. And then their individual purpose, which God has designed for them, will be revealed, like it says in Romans 12:2. Yeah. You will know the perfect and pleasing will of the Lord for your life individually. But round 1 is to get yourself up to where you're trusting me and hearing me, and then we'll get you there.
Right.
But so many folks want to jump into, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
Well, we know your purpose, phase 1. Let God at your heart, trust him with it, and allow him to evolve you to where he can put you in the thing that'll really bless your socks off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you just, again, are reaffirming my life verse is Romans 12:1-2. And, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's the work of God from the inside out. And but you have to trust God and what he's telling you to do that.
This is a trust thing. It's like we can't pull it off through control. And like I've said before, people's life stories put them in situations where they have to take control to survive their situation. Yeah. And then that muscle gets built as the way to do life. And so that's the big challenge, is evolving and start laying down and beginning to trust things once you recognize how trustworthy he is. Yeah. That makes a huge difference in how life feels.
It does. Well, guys, we could go a long time talking about this, and it's all good stuff. And I want you to know that John and Beth and their team do a great job, and I have no hesitation whatsoever about referring people to them. So, John, if we've got people that want to get more information or just check out Rock House Center a little more, what would be the best way for them to go about doing it?
Well, they do need to check us out, and it's rockhousecenter, just like it sounds.com. And there are a tremendous amount of resources there. We've got 60-plus podcasts. We have a number of articles. There are some free, we have some online programs like the Pathway to Peace, which I created coming out of COVID. Some people were losing their peace, so I created an online self-directed thing so they could get their peace back. But we also have their online parenting, not parenting, but marriage programs.
Right.
And the online version, self-directed version of the process we use, with the videos and the workbook and the podcast combined, is also available. So there are a lot of ways to get at materials, and there are a tremendous amount of resources which are free. And really, we've got 50,000 downloads of our podcast because people are really getting blessed by them. I just hope people will really take the opportunity to go in there and wander around and find something. And it's not real theoretical stuff. We solve life problems like, why won't my kids stop lying? It's those kind of, it's like, how do you apply God's truth to a life issue? So there's a lot of resources there.
That's great. I encourage you to visit the website, explore it, go through those different things. Every circumstance you're dealing with in life, there are some things there, resources there, I'm sure, that will help you get a better understanding of God's will and God's plan for how you can make that a better thing in your life. And you'll see life, when you begin to trust God, apply his principles, you see that life begins to get better. It's not some magic thing. It's the work of God over time the transformation that occurs. So I really want to encourage you to visit the website, take a look at that. And if they're needing some counseling, maybe they want some in-person counseling, that kind of thing, would they just contact through the website? Is that the best thing?
You go to the contact page, but actually as soon as you open it up, we have a lot of information right there. And the option is to go ahead and go and set an appointment up right away, or you can, for a free, 30, 40-minute conversation to help people get to know what we're doing. And then they can kind of take it from there, see if it's a fit for where they are, and then we can open them up to whatever resource they need at that time.
That's great.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, letting people hear more about it. We're going to have you back, and we're going to have Beth back here for a podcast too. Maybe we'll focus, like we were talking before the podcast, we're talking about maybe focusing just on marriage one week or some different things like that. Parenting.
That'd be great.
Since you're working on the parenting thing, I think that would be great too.
Yep.
I know some parents here at Lakeshore that could probably, they're looking for some help like that. So
really?
That would be good, yeah. Maybe even some grandparents like myself, you never know, that need some help along the way.
Well, we'd love to. Whatever we can do. Love to support your show.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, before we go today, I want to remind you of some things we've got going on here at Lakeshore. We've got several events coming up. This Saturday, guys, we've got a men's gathering. Starts with breakfast at 8 a.m., and then there's going to be a BB gun shoot where there's a competition going on. We'll have it well supervised. We don't want you to shoot your eye out. But I understand there may be a prize for the best shot, and it's going to be, if you've seen the movie, the Christmas movie, that Red Ryder BB gun, I think they've got one of those as a prize for the winner there at the BB gun shoot. We've got a welcome lunch coming up Sunday, November the 20th. If you're new to Lakeshore and you've not attended one of these yet, it's a great time for you to ask questions, get to know more about our church, get to know some of our staff that will be there. We need you to register in advance. It'll be Sunday, November the 20th after the 10 o'clock service at our Smyrna campus, after the 11 o'clock service at the Antioch campus. When you register for that, you'll choose from a menu there on what lunch you would like to have. And if you need childcare, you can register for that at the same time. So be sure you check that out on our website at lakeshorechristian.com and get registered for that. We have a lot of fun things going on leading into Thanksgiving and Christmas. We really want to be a church that reaches out in the community to help out others that might be struggling right now. We've got a couple of things going on through November. At our Smyrna campus, we're partnering with Smyrna Elementary School for their Eagle Tree Stocking Drive. They have those ornaments available each Sunday there at that campus where you could take one, make a donation there to help out some families that the school has identified needing some help there. And then here at the Antioch campus, we're partnering with Youth for Christ here in Nashville. They've identified some middle and high school students that need some help. Their families need some help for Christmas. We have a tree in the lobby that has ornaments on there. You can pick out one of those ornaments or more if you want to help out more, and go and purchase those items for those families and bring them back to the campus here. We'll make sure those go to those families. So great ways for you to help out some others during this holiday season. For our high schoolers, we've got a conference coming up, TCTC, the Tennessee Christian Teen Convention. It's in Gatlinburg every year, January the 6th through the 8th this year. You need to register in advance for that. They oftentimes fill up at that conference, so go ahead and get registered in advance. And again, you can do that through our link on our website. Or if you're at one of our campuses, we have kiosks in the lobbies at each campus, and you can get registered for any of these things there on the kiosk. This coming Sunday, November 13th, we're going to continue our message series called The Quest. It's the quest for financial health that honors God. Week 1, we looked at some road signs along the way on this quest. God owns it all. God is generous, and God can be trusted. Those are the 3 road signs that get you started down the right path. Last week, we talked about the fact that, yes, there is a dragon on this quest that you're going to run into. It's called the debt dragon. We talked about ways to subdue that dragon. We talked about how we need to look at putting ourselves in a place where we're actually not spending more than we're taking in. We're formulating a budget. We're learning to find contentment in our relationship with God instead of trying to find it in buying stuff all the time or going places. And nothing evil about those things, but that's not where you're going to find that lasting long-term commitment. This week we're going to be talking about, here's the question, what's in your wagon? We're going to be looking at those early pioneers that took the trip to settle our land, moving from Missouri, other areas here east of there, moving out west, and what they had to plan for, how they had to plan for that journey in a covered wagon across the country. It's important what you put in your wagon if you're making a journey like that. So if we want long-term health, financially that honors God. We've got to plan well. So we'll be talking about saving and investing and things like that. So I hope you'll join us this Sunday for that. We want to encourage you to invite family, friends, neighbors, co-workers to join us as we continue to connect, grow, and serve here at Lakeshore Christian Church. Thanks for joining us today.